if you've already seen the title of this video, it's the fucking Democratic Party, dude. I'm gonna get into it a little bit later in a second when more people show up to the stream. But for the time being, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna fucking talk about it right now before my internet cuts out, because it does have a tendency to do that sort of stuff. So I'm just gonna talk about it. All right. So the House Democrats are moving forward under the leadership of Nancy Pelosi to issue another public statement on the floor, putting this on the record in regards to the latest quote-unquote controversial statements that Ilhan Omar made in regards to, again, Israel. And it's incredibly frustrating because it's yet again, nothing controversial was said. Nothing controversial was said whatsoever. I think Ilhan Omar said something along the lines of the loyalty in question of a lot of legislators in regards to our allegiance with a foreign nation, and a foreign nation meaning Israel, is something we should criticize, something along those lines, which I 100% agree with. Now, there is an anti-Semitic way of looking at this. Is there certainly an anti-Semitic way of talking about this? I think it's called like dual loyalty or some shit. I don't fucking know, dude. It doesn't matter. Once again, 2 days after, or no, throughout the, and this was, by the way, her response was in regards to people in the Virginia GOP office putting a meme poster, like one of those boomer style meme posters of 9/11 up top and Ilhan Omar in the bottom, where the poster read, the top text of the poster read, "You said you'd never forget," and it's a photo of 9/11 with the planes striking the World Trade Center. And then the bottom text is a photo of Ilhan Omar. This shows me you have forgotten. Implying that Ilhan Omar is aligned with the Al-Qaeda and aligned with terrorists, and that she herself is not loyal to the United States of America, but instead loyal to Al-Qaeda, I guess. Exclusively because she's Muslim, by the way. So, truly horrifically racist. Like, if you want a fucking bigoted statement, it's not saying it's really remarkable that these politicians will openly promote Israeli interest and sometimes even put it in front of the interest of Americans or whatever. But to turn around and literally be like, hey, this hijabi woman is a fucking terrorist. Like, that's actually bigoted. And of course, as is the case with a lot of our radical dipshit centrist Democrats, everyone rushed not to defend Ilhan Omar immediately in the aftermath of this gross and hateful fucking statement by people who are within the GOP. Like, it's an easy slam dunk. Hey, racist Republicans, don't be fucking racist. Like, that's the easiest thing you can say. And yet Democrats still had to take shots and be like, well, I really hate anti-Semitism, the vile and gross things that Ilhan Omar says about Jews, even though she's never said anything gross about Jews or whatever. But also, this kind of hatred against her is also unwarranted. Like, every statement has to still hit back at Democrats, still hit back at Ilhan Omar. So her statements were in response to the leader of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the House, like technically her boss, doing this like whataboutis bullshit, even when she was supposedly rushing to defend her own party member and also rushing to defend someone who is being targeted by the GOP for being Muslim, for the crime of being a hijab-wearing Muslim woman. So she turned around and fucking fought back. She turned around and said some shit. And let me tell you, not acceptable, apparently. Really cool that the Democratic Party is totally showing us that they're very normal and very cool and not overreacting to statements made in regards to Israel by overreacting to people who are making statements in regards to Israel that are rather tame, or statements as far as lobbying, the prevalence of money in politics, and how it pertains to the Israeli lobby in this instance, or our really fucked foreign policy and the way we align ourselves with violent states. Now imagine, I criticize not only Israel, but Saudi Arabia and plenty of other foreign nations, but especially Saudi Arabia, okay? Especially Saudi Arabia for Wahhabi extremism, for how much they've contributed to terror all around the world, right? No one would ever be like, that's Islamophobic. Why are you being Islamophobic? No one ever would turn around and criticize Charlie Kirk, who talks a whole lot about how Saudi Arabia is awful, and say that's Islamophobic. Why are you being Islamophobic? But for some reason, whenever any sort of valid criticism is launched against Israel, which is not a Jewish state, by the way, it's anti-Semitic and unacceptable. And it is so fucking frustrating, dude. It's so frustrating. Like, what are we doing? This is the same week that the UN report showed that the IDF willingly and knowingly opened sniper fire on children, on journalists, on medics, violating the human rights and the Geneva Convention. On this week, there is still no criticism of Israel that is acceptable inside of our legislative body. What the fuck? What the fuck are you doing? If you want to prove people, if you want to prove to the people that you are open-minded and that you're not rushing to insane convictions in an effort to defend and justify the violent and atrocious acts that this ethno-state is committing, this is not the way to do it. Probably not the most sane or most effective way to do it. I don't know, man. The rest of the fucking planet is aware of what Israel is doing, and they openly criticize it. And yet, America's like, nope, abso-fucking-lutely not. Anyway, I'm just so mad, dude, at the flagrant hypocrisy. They're not even hiding it. No one is hiding it. It just, no one gives a fuck. This person is gonna get fucking murdered. They're going to execute this person. Like, they are openly talking about killing this person and justifying it by saying she's an Al-Qaeda sympathizer, justifying it by saying she sympathizes with terrorists, adding on to existing tropes and existing negative stereotypes about Muslims that have gone on for so long in the post-9/11 era. And the Democrats are just selling her out. This is what really fucking frustrates me about liberals, dude. The Sam Harris type liberals. Those liberals who are so open-minded. Those liberals who are so woke. Who only performatively cry about Islamophobia and all this other shit. And yet have nothing to say. Yet have nothing to say in defense of Ilhan Omar. When people are saying that she is a fucking terrorist. It's disgusting. Because I largely believe that a lot of these fucking liberals are just racist. They're just more polite. Just more polite racists. They're more polite than the conservatives, but at least the conservatives are fucking honest. At least they're honest about their bigotry. At least they're like, yeah, that bitch is a fucking Muslim terrorist. She's a Muslim and therefore I'm afraid of her. She's violent. She's a terrorist. Liberals, on the other hand, are like, oh, well, sirs and madams. I mean, there is a reasonable middle ground where we can be racist on just Mondays. And, you know, for the rest of the week, I'll be a good, wholesome liberal. What the fuck? There is no concessions that we should be giving when it comes to protecting marginalized people. There is no concessions that we should be giving when it comes to protecting categories that need to be protected. Jim Jordan literally called Tom Steyer, whose father, I learned, by the way, I didn't even know that Tom Steyer was Jewish. Jim Jordan was talking about Tom Steyer and put a fucking $sign in the place of the S in his last name. He literally was like, this fucking guy. Like, I mean, it's like one step below putting the triple parentheses, dude. Literally. This motherfucker, 2 days ago, not a single person is talking about it. Just tweeted it out. And look, I don't even know if he meant it in an anti-Semitic fashion, or if he meant it as like, oh, this person is very wealthy. Because I personally didn't know that Tom Steyer was Jewish. Maybe Jim Jordan didn't know either. I'm sure he knew. I'm sure he fucking knew. But where is all the criticism? Why is it that if a Republican is being anti-Semitic, no one gives a fuck? No one gives a fuck whatsoever. Because they do not pose a threat to Israel. But if someone who is outspoken in their criticism of Israel says anything, like, hey, the Israeli lobby is really influencing a lot of legislators to take specific actions. And then they're like, oh, fucking, what the fuck? That's anti-Semitism. We must condemn this vile and anti-Semitic slur. We must combat it any way we can. Meanwhile, the Republican Party's platform is literally like, George Soros is a wealthy Jewish puppeteer who is funding the Democratic Party, funding all of these protests, who is promoting the liberal notion of diversity in an effort to commit white genocide. Like, that is literally fascist rhetoric. That is fascist, white supremacist propaganda, okay? This notion that Jews are responsible as these shadowy, wealthy puppeteers who are orchestrating white genocide behind closed doors in an effort to take away power from the white people is literally fascist propaganda. And it is also, coincidentally, the white nativist immigration policy justification by the Republican Party. And yet no one talks about it. That is insane to me. It is fucking insane to me. It is so obvious. It is almost as obvious and as flagrantly as hypocritical as Netan motherfucking Yahoo shaking the hands of Viktor Orban, a gross anti-Semite and another fascist, or aligning himself with Jair Bolsonaro. These motherfuckers don't care about the Jews in their country. They're just fascists. They don't give a fuck about Jews. They just want a place that they can send the Jews back to. So they're like, fine, have your ethno-state away from me. Go kill all the Muslims. And Netanyahu fucking knows this. And that is precisely why he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, imagine being buddy with a guy like fucking Viktor Orban. Okay? And shaking that motherfucker's hand. And then turning around and speaking on behalf of anti-Semitism by conflating any valid criticism against the violent acts that the Israeli state has taken as gross and vile and anti-Semitic. What a fucking insane world we live in, dude. What a fucking insane world we live in, dude. Just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Just insane. Oh, anyway. Free speech, by the way, guys, okay? Free speech. Right, guys? All the conservatives love free speech. Where are my fucking conservatives at, dog? Where are my conservatives at? Huh? Where are all the fucking free speech defenders when it comes to BDS? An actual threat to freedom of speech. We are not even talking about a theoretical threat. We are not even talking about the concept of freedom of speech. Because free speech, even in the American understanding of it, is not necessarily getting banned off of Twitter for saying, like, you know, blacks are inferior to whites or whatever. Actual free speech is when the government, through a series of legislation, takes away your right to say whatever you want. Anti-BDS legislation is literally antithetical to freedom of speech. It is in opposition to freedom of speech. And yet, I don't hear a single fucking peep, dude. A single fucking peep from the Republicans on behalf of BDS legislation. Real weird. Real weird. No one came out to defend Mark Lamont Hill when he got fired from CNN. And no one is coming out to defend Ilhan Omar. I wonder why, dude. I wonder why.